My kind of crowd.
Yeah.
I'm not staying.
It's just
Feels
you
quiet
and
and
the
roomy
rain.
in here.
I guess so.
Yeah, it's in
On a
Sand
Monday.
Hollow, isn't it? From the
Yeah, I'll let you
background.
I don't know.
That'd be awesome.
Could be Sand Hollow or Lake Powell.
There is an alarm going off, and if anybody has a car that makes that type of distress sound, it's not your hearing aids. It's definitely a vehicle. It's ended.
No. So when Zion, we get financing from Zion's Bank, we get
Nuts.
tea chocolates. But when we get treats from our finance director, we get homegrown goodness.
Wow, nice. It's because she understands good investment. I suppose that means science wants to kill us off. Clog our arteries.
Nuts.
And we are
I
live.
haven't tried any of those yet.
Thank you, Summer. Welcome, everyone.
They're on offer if you want a bag.
Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. It is September 9, 2019. This afternoon, we did have a pre-council workshop at 2 p.m. So if you're looking on your agenda for this evening, we are now at 2, regular city council meeting, 7 p.m. Call this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. No worries. Here, take. Got it? Okay. You got it. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's make sure you make it back okay. All right.
So the moral of this story is on wet asphalt, it's slipperier than dry asphalt. That's all I got to say. Okay?
Oh.
Do I need to go get some soda more?
I knew you.
Thank you, Joe Kingsley. All right. We are going to start tonight. The first thing I'd like to report is that we have a new intern at City Hall. And if you would all be so kind as to allow me to welcome him. And he has a few things to say to get us started tonight about e-scooters. So Ty Martinez, come on up. And I just want to say welcome. We love the internship program. And Tani, you and I are going to just kind of scoot back a bit.
We can do that.
And we're going to let him stand here.
Oh, right here, okay.
You have that hump.
I
You
know.
might want to go, maybe you go next to Karen. I just wanted to get recorded.
You can use that one.
Well, I figured he projects fairly well, so I think, but you know, if you roll over the hump there.
Ty, I can give you my seat.
Yeah. No, I think this will work just fine. We're just gonna put him right on this spot right here. Okay.
Before I start, if I speak too quickly, just let me know, slow down. I kind of do debate, so I'm used to speaking relatively fast. Everybody ready?
Right.
All right. Before I start, we will be talking about the dangers and issues of e-scooters. My time will begin in 3, 2, 1. E-scooters have been hailed as an eco-friendly transportation system and have been popularized by millennials in many metropolitan cities such as Atlanta, Austin, Denver, San Francisco, LA, DC, New York City, and some European cities, but we're going to talk about Europe later. Contention 1 is speed. The top speed of an e-scooter can vary depending on the model. For example, the Nanobot LS7 has a top speed of 52 miles per hour, but don't worry, that's a private scooter. Bird and Lime, the major companies that produce e-scooters, both use safer, slower models. Bird uses the Xiaomi M365, and Lime uses the 9Bot ES2, which have a top speed of about 15 miles per hour. But just like every other motorized vehicle, people find ways to make it faster. As Andrew Hawkins explains for Verge, February 12, 2019, an electric scooter popular with dockless ride-sharing services can be made to suddenly accelerate or brake mid-ride thanks to a flaw in the device's Bluetooth module. Security research from firm Zimperium reported. In a video, Zimperium researchers were able to demonstrate their proof of concept. The scooter was designed to allow users to remotely lock it using Bluetooth-enabled app, preventing someone from riding it through the hacks, Imperium was able to target any passerby riding the Xiaomi M365, locking the device as well as forcing it to accelerate and or brake without physically accessing the scooter. They can manipulate scooters up to 100 meters or 328 feet away. I'm going to butcher this. Umair Irfan writes for Vox September 7, 2018. Speed has never killed anyone, said former Top Gear presenter Jeremy Clarkson. Suddenly becoming stationary, that's what gets you. Traveling at up to 15 miles per hour doesn't seem like much until you rapidly become acquainted with an unmoving object. Scooters don't have crumple zones, airbags, or padding, so riders are exposed to everything around them. There's been a rise in scooter-related injuries, but that's largely a function of spread of scooters themselves rather than inherent danger in the vehicle. Now, you may be asking yourself, why not wear pads or a helmet, and what's the difference between dangers of a bike? So I'll explain those really quick. If we're being honest, the average citizen would not probably have immediate access to either a helmet or pads, and even if they did, what's the likelihood they would wear them? Me personally, whenever I've ridden a bike, scooter, or skateboard, or anything like that, I've never worn a helmet. And it's not because, I just have a blatant disregard for safety. It's because either I don't have access to it, or I'm just thinking, oh, I'm only going X distance, it's not that far, I'll be fine. Now let's just address bikes really quick. The differences between this and a bike are major, such as a bike has its own lane, is easily slower than 15 miles per hour, generally speaking, and is heavily regulated by laws. So contention 2, crowding out bikes and pedestrians. There's only so much room on a sidewalk. The small area was subject to change with cyclists and pedestrians had conflicts in the past. This is why we have bike lanes in Moab. So now introducing e-scooters will only bring conflict with pedestrians, and where are they going to go? In the bike lane. And then there's only going to be conflict when they take over bike lanes. So Peter Hawley explains for the Washington Post, January 11, 2019. For months, public officials, doctors, and scooter company employees have warned about the dangers associated with riding electric scooters. At the same time, in emergency rooms across the country, trauma doctors have reported an influx of severe injuries among users of devices that began as soon as they appeared in city streets. There are no official numbers illustrating how frequently pedestrians are injured by scooters, but doctors' interviews in 5 cities say badly injured pedestrians are showing up in trauma centers multiple times a week. In San Diego, for example, the founder of one neighborhood group told the city council's public safety committee that his elderly neighbors are afraid to set foot outside, knowing a broken hip can be a debilitating injury requiring surgery. Kurt Decker, executive director of the National Disability Rights Network, said the devices are a commuting nightmare for the visually impaired and those who get around via wheelchair. While able-bodied people are usually maneuver around e-scooters, the elderly and disabled can have a much harder time, said Wally Garabi, medical director of the Nethercutt Emergency Center at UCLA. Now let's address Europe. And Lisa Ben writes for Time Magazine, August 27, 2019. Collisions with both cars and pedestrians have sent thousands of e-scooter users and unwitting victims to hospitals. One study conducted by the CDC for the city of Austin, Texas, found roughly 20 injuries per 100,000 rides, with half of those considered serious. Scooters have also been implicated in deaths in Paris, London, San Diego, Singapore, and Barcelona. Following 4 fatalities within 3 months, Atlanta banned their use at night. A few days later, for a French organization representing 60 or so citizens injured in e-scooter collisions, announced plans to sue Paris authorities. Okay. Now we're going to go over cycling in Europe. So strong cycling culture isn't necessarily compatible with shared e-scooters either in Copenhagen, where half of all trips to work and school are made by bike. The reception has been decidedly mixed. A quote by Anne-Sophie Hermansen said, Egypt had 10 plagues, Copenhagen only has 1. Some of the resentment stems from the scooter company's appropriation of the city's public furniture. As a cyclist in Copenhagen, you feel taken into consideration that the city's built a proper space for you, says Klaus Bondman, director of the Danish Cyclist Federation. There's a democratic sense that has been built into the urban streetscape over several generations. That's basically being disrupted at the moment. E-scooters don't fit in our democratic model of how we use the urban space, and that space can get crowded. Contention 3 is brake problems. Lime scooters have had a long history of ineffective brakes. Ryan Felton writes for Consumer Reports, February 25th, 2019. If the brakes do not engage properly and immediately stop the vehicle, dismount, end the trip, and notify Lime customer service, the statement says. The warning from Lime follows an investigation published by Consumer Reports, which found that an estimated 1,500 people have been injured as a result of e-scooter crashes. CR spot checked hospitals from across the U.S. and also obtained internal crash data from Mine and Berg. No official e-scooter crash data exists, but CR tabulated an injury count by contacting 110 hospitals in 47 cities that use these. As well as public agencies currently tasked with tracking data or crashes, to date at least 4 people have been killed while riding an e-scooter in the United States. Lime is the only company to have been accused of renting out scooters with allegedly faulty brakes. A potential class action lawsuit filed by a bird ride in January claims the company's scooters contain defective electronics, brakes, battery charges, indicators, wheels and tires, internal power loops, and accelerators, and do not contain adequate instructions and or warnings regarding these hazards. Thank you.
Wow. City Hall. All right. He is going to be a policy partner for this council. So if there are any policy concerns or issues or things that you want some research on, Ty is willing to work with us to do some of that research. And so that's a little bit. And I believe at our next city council meeting, we will have e-scooter legislation before us, correct?
We will.
Interesting nugget that I heard from that is the regulating hours of day, that there's a issue with nighttime scooting, if you will. Interesting. Thank you so much. Okay, on to my reporting of things, and you are welcome to leave if you need to do so. Okay. I attended a water quality board meeting. And I wanted to report that I did ask board members if they would consider our next meeting, which looks like will be November 6th, to be in Moab. So if that is the case, I will send you all the details so that you can attend as well and see what the Water Quality Board is all about. Again, it's suggesting legislation to the state, but also managing funds for water projects. I attended the Labor Day concert at Old City Park. So much fun, and we were thanked by the music festival for the use of Old City Park. It really was a wonderful event. I attended the Utah Rural Summit, which was in Cedar City. It was attended by over 600 people. I was very honored to be asked to sit on a panel where Lieutenant Governor Cox's wife, Abby Cox, was the moderator, and I was on a panel with other female leaders of other communities. It was so much fun, and we got a lot of really cool feedback, but one of the resulting events was me asking why we didn't have a playground at the state capitol. If Utah is ranking 50th in equality for women, maybe we need to think about points of inclusion. And so Abby, Spencer, and Mike Bauer all thought that that was a pretty good idea. So more on that later. Wouldn't that be fun? Oscar, it really came from Oscar, having gone up to the Capitol with me. Mom, where can I go play? So, and it was a really great conference. At the conclusion of the conference was the Governor's Rural Partnership Board meeting, of which I'm a member. And I was appointed by the Utah League of Cities and Towns to be on that board. And I just wanted to celebrate that one of the 3 stated legislative priorities for this next legislative session that is finalized, coming from the Rural Partnership Board, is TRT reform. A change in percentage and an expanded use. So that is really exciting because that is something that we have been talking about for a very long time. And I will report too that the governor said in front of everybody that he supports that cities know best how to spend their money and that it's time to deal with some infrastructure. And not only did he say it to everybody in the room, but after the meeting was over, he personally came to me and reiterated what he said. And that was so fantastic. It was such a shiny fan moment, I guess. Me fan of him, not, you know. I also, Deb Dull came to town and met with me and Joel because remember when I told you that we had met with her before and talked about different priorities for the year with Rocky Mountain Power and our relationship. One of them that we had discussed was their service center and how it would be a whole lot cooler if maybe it was a residential/commercial use as opposed to storage of just Rocky Mountain Power stuff and office. So Deb took that very seriously and called a meeting to discuss it. And Joel, I don't know what you think, but I think it went really well. He's going to go back to his team. So the man that Deb brought, he's in charge of all Rocky Mountain Power real estate. So he's going to go back to his team and see what they're interested in, but also it's our responsibility to see if there's another place for that business to land. And one place that Joel and I were looking at was maybe around the Public Works property, because we could potentially combine, you know, if that continues to be sort of big truck storage row with UDOT and with the county and the city, maybe that would be a good place for them. Maybe that's property we can share and open up the parcel that is currently Rocky Mountain Park. Huh?
UDOT, not the county.
Oh, that's what I meant. Yeah, UDOT. But like there's workforce services across the street, so yeah, but it is not county, you're right. So that's kind of exciting. And I just think Rocky Mountain Power's been a really good partner. What else? There was a CIB workshop at the county. Joel and I attended. And while everybody else is in budget season, or, you know, heading into budget season and we're just heading out of it, it was really helpful for Joel to see the list that had been generated by former city manager, David Everett, in kind of looking forward at what our funding priorities would be. So on the heels of our meeting today, Joel's going to revise that list and work with Rachel to make sure that we are really specific in what we want to be asking for CIB funds moving forward. Congressman Representative John Curtis, he's amazing. He had a rural business summit in Price this past Friday. I actually attended with Mary. We sat on a panel to talk about some like show me the money, or deal with infrastructure or something like that. It was actually a really cool panel. Met a lot of really interesting people. Networked a bit about the November 8 speed dating, investor speed dating opportunities zone event that's going to be happening in Moab. It was just really nice to see the congressman pull together business. But because it was in Price, there was a bit of an emphasis about Price and about coal country. And it almost felt historic moment where the mayor of Price was, you know, speaking to everybody in the room about how it's time for Price to transition, and how it's important for them to diversify their economy and to understand that coal's moving on and going away.
And this is the mayor who works in the coal industry.
Yeah,
Wow.
so he actually works at the coal plant, and he works night shift. And I'm telling you, Mayor Corianis is just what Price City needs right now. And I said to him, you know, however Moab can help, I don't know what that is, but we can certainly be legislative advocates for them as they try to go through this tough transition. Because I would certainly rather go up to Price to buy clothing than over to Grand Junction. And then today we did our LPC, so maybe Ronnie, you can talk about that. It was so exciting and so heated, and we were so good in disagreeing with some people, and then also we have the league's annual meeting is this week. Tani, myself, Ronnie, and maybe Karen, probably not, are going to attend, and I'm really looking forward to that. And that's all from me.
Oh, now you've prompted me to look for this thing. Oh. Okay, yeah, so we had a webcast meeting from Salt Lake for the Utah League of Cities and Towns, a legislative policy committee. And the bulk of the meeting was spent discussing 2 resolutions that will be voted on by the voting members later this week at the conference. But those have to do with air quality and, correct me if I'm wrong because you spent more time with it, but kind of having to do with local control when it comes to economic development.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's interesting to see those, and it seems like we'll have some good discussion. I was kind of surprised. You're always surprised at some things can be controversial, but apparently they can be. So
Yeah.
you can spend a lot of time wordsmithing. So note to self. What else? I went to a Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District meeting 5th of September. Just for folks who might be interested, they've been putting in a memorial garden to memorialize all the previous residents, and they'll have a ribbon cutting for that on the 16th of October at noon. And then we had an EMS Special Service District meeting this morning already, and I had a few things from that. Numbers tend to continue to be up. Let's see, for so far this year, 935 calls versus 850 this time last year.
Whoa,
Yeah.
quite a bit more.
Yeah. EMS and the fire district, and it sounds like, I think, the police department too are talking about the possibility of coming together to share an emergency manager, largely to deal with looking for grant funding and dealing with various aspects of the radio system, which is very complicated, I'm learning. What else? There will be, thanks to an anonymous donor in the community, a free CPR class on the 28th of September. So if anyone's interested, you can contact EMS about that. It's just CPR, not first aid, but a great thing to have access to. And the other thing we discussed is EMS was successful in going to the CIB for $4.8 million for a new...
How much?
4.8.
Oh,
Yeah, well, it's, partially, but it's, like a quarter grant and three-quarter loan at 0%, which is great for a new facility for them. The slight hitch is the piece of property that you were looking at is a little bit complicated and potentially problematic. So a bunch of stakeholders are getting together to discuss other options for them in the 1.5 acre range, and that'll be happening later this week. And I guess that was it.
thanks, Ronnie.
Robin, sorry, can I ask one?
Yeah.
Did they say that those calls with EMS, the percentages of locals compared to?
Sometimes I have those charts. Let me see if I have that this time. I don't have it this time, but I can get you a breakdown.
Yeah, I was
Sometimes
just curious.
sometimes I get it, and sometimes I don't. And it seems to fluctuate. Like sometimes it's more visitors, and sometimes it's more residents, and kind of seems to depend on time of year. Yeah.
That'd be a good data point for us for the next few days, so. Thanks.
Shoot, I forgot. Sorry, I forgot one important thing that was important to all of you. Just sorry.
No worries.
And that was just I'm passing on that I've been told there's a big push going on for EMS to come to the city to ask for assistance in funding, and that others will be doing this when there are services that are shared by both city and county residents. And I just wanted to pass that on. Okay, sorry, Mike.
I did participate in an interview with the assistant city manager candidate, and Joel, is that candidate still on board to come on, if I may ask?
Yes, we'll make those announcements at our next council meeting, just to get closer to the actual start dates and make sure everything's square before we officially announce, how getting housing and getting here. But it's solid as a rock, it looks like right now, but we'll just hold off until we're a little closer. So September 30th is what we're looking for a start date for that position.
Okay, that's outstanding. I will confide that I proposed to her that one of her duties could be to sort of complete feedback loops all the time. Ronnie and I and the rest of you guys get requests from residents about this and that. And ordinarily we put in a request into staff. And as we saw today in an earlier session, for example, of public works curbs kind of thing, excuse me, the city did do something about it. Everything happened, except nobody ever got back to me to let me know. And so our resident doesn't know either. So I suggested to her that maybe she could fulfill that role since you're a busy man.
Well, hopefully I won't be so busy. Once we get those positions filled, we have started reclassifying our organizational chart, and certain departments will get assigned to the assistant city manager, and certain departments will stay with me. A lot of those emails then can be directed directly into those two funnels, which should cut mine in half. And then hopefully that will start addressing that.
Okay, that'd be great. And, a couple other things. I did go to a Moab Music Festival concert over at the brand-new Hoodoo Hotel. Have any of you guys been up to the new ballroom upstairs? And it's quite spectacular. But the interesting thing for me was we happened to sit next to a couple from California, and they remarked, he says, oh, we've been coming to Moab for years and so forth. This kind of strikes me as really big city stuff. So the bottom line on it was, he'd been coming to Moab, not really for that, but for what I might call Moab's rustic charm. I mean, that's why he was coming here. In other words, and I said, well, perhaps Mr. Bynum is building for what he thinks will happen in the future. There's nothing wrong with what Mike did. I think it's great. But I do want to emphasize that I don't think people come here for big city hotels necessarily. I mean, that was their opinion anyway. And finally, you guys, Rob Decker, I missed this one because I was at a council meeting, but my wife went, bought this book. If you haven't read it, go down to Arches Back and Beyond bookstore, buy it, and read it. It's really cool. I mean, to me, as somebody who grew up somewhere else besides Utah, it's a terrific resource. So.
Are you done with it? Great.
Some of us lived it.
Utah politics. Thanks, Mike.
I don't have anything. Museum didn't have a meeting last month, and I reported on the Housing Authority last time, so I'm good.
Thanks, Tony.
It was pretty quiet for me as well. I have been back and forth to Junction 3 separate times, as my daughter is now attending middle school out there. And I attended this weekend in Richfield the Red Devils mountain bike race, because she is still racing with the Red Devils team. The team itself came in first place, which is very cool for a small school. And I also wanted to bring to everyone's attention that the Secretary of the Interior, David Bernhardt, signed an order on Thursday, August 29th, which will allow access of electric bikes on BLM land and national parks. So this would effectively allow e-bikes onto any federal trail where non-motorized bicycles can ride. And we are gonna need to address some of the rules that we have in place on our roads as well, because e-bikes are not allowed on the bike path, but that's problematic since people are gonna need to get to the bike trails. And so that's a discussion for the future.
A couple things about that. Number one, the BLM, Lance Porter said that he's looking to reclassify them so that they are non-motorized in classification. And so once the BLM comes out with that classification, we can consider using that for bike path. And then the other thing is, did you know they only have 2 weeks? So that order gives them 2 weeks to figure it out, which I thought was almost more shocking than the allowing e-bikes. And it's Department of Interior, so it's not Department of Agriculture. So like whole enchilada is not, like the Forest Service is not recognizing e-bikes or doesn't plan to right now.
It's on the books. There is discussion.
They're gonna do it as well?
Well, it's
without mandate?
it's most likely going to happen. I would be prepared for it to happen.
Yeah. It's a huge deal.
It is a huge deal.
What are you hearing from the cycling community?
That it's about time. I mean, but it's mixed. I mean, there's purists who feel that once you open up e-bikes on trails, and that's going to allow e-motorcycles, and so it's a larger discussion, but it's probably going to be based on speeds, which Ty touched on a little bit, and I would just like to keep in mind with Ty's speech, even though it was very quick and somewhat hard to understand, that we should not undermine true public safety for the sake of perceived public safety. So he had discussions about speeds and, we aren't going to allow scooters on sidewalks, but if you put them in bike lanes and you put a cap at 50 miles per hour, bicycles do go faster than that. So there's going to be
Yeah.
I mean, it's just trying to find that balance where, you know, people are safe. I mean, that's just, and not the perceived safe.
Yeah.
So that,
So Karen, did I understand you correctly? This would permit e-bikes on mountain bike trails? Here?
yep. BLM, on BLM land, and most of the mountain bike trails that we have are established on BLM land.
Yeah, the power limit on bikes is really important, you know, because I had a 700-watt bike, for example, which is pretty powerful. And I've told back in Boulder, my hometown, there you can buy much more powerful than that. But in Europe, you're limited to like 200, 250 watts Canada, same kind of thing. It'd be more, I guess what I'm trying to say, they'd be a little more acceptable because they'd be underpowered if their power was restricted.
And I think that will be absolutely a discussion. It'll be a matter of top speeds. And I mean, something to keep in mind too is that they're pedal assist. It's not, you don't have a throttle. So the only way to make them work is if you are pedaling. So that's, a lot of people don't understand that. And they're quiet, and it gets people out. And it could be a really great, even with the e-scooters, that last mile, that when we are talking about shuttle services or train service or bus service, there's that last mile connection. And so these are avenues that could be used to help us succeed in a transportation plan. So that's all.
And an average e-bike costs what?
They're expensive. I mean,
They start at probably around $1,000, $1,100.
yep, and go up to 10 if you want a full suspension mountain bike.
And we can review our rules. One of the main reasons they have been not allowed on our pass is because a lot of the pass were built with federal funding, and the federal funding required that they not allow motorized vehicles, and the classification that they just changed had classified them as motorized vehicles. And so whether we wanted to allow them or not, we weren't permitted to allow them because of the funding we had received to build the pathways. So now that that has been removed, it opens it up for us to review and see if there's other reasons, but it should open them up for the most part.
That's it.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay, I'll transition with an e-bike anecdote. I was at the intersection of Cane Creek and 191, and I saw an e-bike headed southbound, but in the northbound shoulder, going what seemed like 20 to 25 miles per hour. And I'm used to occasionally seeing bikes in the wrong side of the street, which is alarming because, like, if I'm not like really careful to look for them, they can just scoot out into an intersection, and you double their speed in an uphill situation where you're not expecting it, and it's just dangerous. It's like, I mean, if we're going to have them, they have to start to learn that they have responsibility as well as a right to be on our streets, and that means behaving in a predictable way in conformance with the traffic laws. And if they don't, then it's time to start enforcing on that and sending the message that.
Yeah, I think Karen hit that on the head too, is if we're going this route, regulation, we need to figure out how we're going to regulate this and actually enforce regulation.
Critical.
I also attended a solid waste board meeting on the 29th. We had a public hearing on a fee update, and there was one member of the local press in attendance, but no commenters. We did not change our municipal solid waste fee, so hopefully we won't be hearing from Monument asking for an adjustment to their contract here. But Evan did a regional pricing comparison looking at like a dozen adjacent landfills. So that was very interesting. And even though our primary commodity, municipal solid waste, wasn't adjusted, there's a lot more specificity now about different things that are received and fees appropriate to the labor and risk associated with handling them. Let's see, there's a state level water conservation plan that is out, and that we're in the comment period, and it proposes a 20% improvement, 20% reduction in per capita usage in municipal and industrial water usage. And the comment period goes through the 29th of this month, I believe. It's a 30-day. And I wondered if anyone knew if we were planning on commenting. And it doesn't seem like the goal itself is probably in line with what we're intending to do anyway. But some of what it has to do is like the mechanism by which that is achieved, and I believe a lot of it is, the emphasis is just on water rate pricing, which is certainly a strong incentive, but it might, but it seems like if the state could help us with other incentives for water users and education, that can help as well. Because for many people, it might take quite a big rate increase to actually get them to change their behavior, but if they understood how to do things, that could help it along. So, Mike, and do you know, has the Conservation Board have any discussion about this?
Not on that exact subject, not in the last couple of meetings, no.
Okay, yeah. Right.
I will point out, I don't think we talked about it once before. Rosemary Russo has looked pretty carefully at hotel usage, and they're not guilty. All right, in other words, they're compared to what residents use, they look pretty good on a per capita basis. And I think the reason is that residents use culinary water to water their lawns, and hotels don't have lawns by and large. So if it strikes me that if we wish to lower the culinary water rate per capita across the board here in the city, the place to start would be to find a use for supply of secondary water rather than culinary water to water your lawns with.
Okay. I was thinking more about, like I know other places have incentive programs for people to put in smart timers, which it's a pretty super short payback period for potentially dramatic increases. Like they've been proven to cut water use by 30% pretty consistently. So for people that have irrigation systems that use timers, and so a secondary water system is a major capital investment, whereas something more incremental and helping to move that sort of, and water audits, just helping people like have well-maintained, efficient irrigation systems without asking them to change their landscaping.
When was the comment period?
I believe it's through the 29th, and I have glanced through it, but I haven't reviewed it. I didn't know if...
Okay, and we have talked about those two subjects, particularly Rosemary and Carl Darwin.
Yeah,
So that has come up.
great.
I'll follow up with staff and see.
Okay.
Chuck and Rosemary and see.
I attended the last county council meeting on the 3rd, and I was there to present with Councilmember Wells on the Arches Congestion Management Roundtable, the 2-day workshop that we're working on putting together. And he was just wanting to fill in his counsel and also sort of start to ask about funding it. It's going to be about $30,000 to bring in the subject matter experts, just their per diems. Private sector, there's a few from the private sector, so they'll have to be paid. We're presuming that federal employees will be able to attend on their dime, more or less, but and so the initial hope is that it can be paid for with TRT promotional funds, but failing that, possibly splitting that city and county, and $15,000 to hopefully, and I mentioned this to you all before, come up with enough community understanding and dialogue to hopefully move this issue forward with more unanimity than we've had in the past.
So, I'm sorry, $30,000 is gonna be used for what exactly?
To bring in a number of people. So over the last 5 years, Arches has had several studies done on different approaches to their congestion problem. So bring in people from those firms, hopefully the primary authors, to recap their conclusions. Also bring in people from the Park Service, from Zion, Muir Woods, the Denver office to talk about either the individual parks, like, so Muir Woods is doing a reservation system, so they have firsthand experience. Zion's has had a shuttle system for quite a while, and my understanding is that they are bumping up against the limits to the effectiveness of that, just with the crowds they're experiencing. And then from the Denver regional office, they are, in conjunction with the other federal management agencies, are working on visitor management framework, because this is an issue that is affecting many federal land managers.
So the monies would be used to bring them here
Yes.
to do a, okay.
Exactly.
Have you guys looked at a private-public sponsorship deal together? Because it seems like there's quite a few businesses that.
Yes, hotels will be asked to, yeah.
Okay, just curious.
What about the NEPA process, the meeting that they're having on this, that the Southeastern Utah group is having in October? Is this going to coincide, or is this going to be?
I'm not familiar with that.
Kate's been talking about in October the NEPA meeting that they're having.
Okay. I'm going to get together with her this week anyway, so I will ask about that.
Yeah.
Curtis has been the lead on this, so I've been holding back, but Kate wanted to talk to me, so I'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Thank you for that update.
And I will also, this wasn't why I was there, but if y'all didn't read the paper, USU, they had a contingent there, state legislators, as well as Liana and someone else from USU, asking the county for $500,000 to help out with the extension office component of the new campus, which will be 3,000 square feet out of the 20,000 total. More fundraising in the works for USU. But extension is normally something that is a county function.
Yeah.
Although, as we heard from Ronnie, just because it's traditionally a county function doesn't mean that the city will be immune from being asked to participate.
Yep. One more thing before we move on. So Crystal has said that she wants this council to do a letter, and you said that you were going to put that together.
Yes, I have sent you a link to the Google Doc.
Okay.
And did you get that, or would you like me to resend it?
Maybe resend it. Is that, but are we going to present it to the council, or is it something I just signed?
I would say that's up to, I wasn't sure what the protocol was.
It's just in support of dark sky, so it's
Well,
I can.
it's in support of so the city is, per our general plan, applying for international dark sky community designation. And part of that is that part of the application is endorsement letters. So hopefully from the city as well. The city council, I should say.
So I can sign it, or we could do everybody's signature, so it doesn't matter.
Seems like if it's everyone's, then it should be formally, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what the deadline is, but we could
I think
do it
with you
formally.
having adopted the ordinance, you could I'll sign a letter in support of your ordinance.
Right. Well, this is in support of,
Yeah.
it's a little bigger than that, but
Okay.
but it is part of the.
We can put it on as a
It is in the
resolution.
general plan.
We can put it on as a resolution
Or
and
I can
adopt
just
it.
sign it.
It's up to you guys.
I'll just sign the letter, and we'll, on behalf of all of us, if that's okay with everybody. Okay,
I'll share it with everyone.
that'll be good. Okay, good. All right, we are moving on to Section 5, Administrative Reports. Thank you.
So I want to start tonight by thanking staff for the amount of time, Chuck, Rachel, Oscar, and their departments, for the amount of research that they put in to try and figure out what we have and where we have it. They literally were pulling out hand-drawn maps from the 30s and pulling that information off of it. So I don't know that it was 100% accurate, but I don't know that you're going to get any better information based off the amount of research we've done over the last month. And I want to thank them because, like Oscar said today, Chuck's only been here a few years. I've only been here about a year. Oscar's new. Not only was it helpful to provide you guys with the information, but it was really helpful for staff too to understand what we have and get some institutional knowledge that maybe's walked out the door over the years as people who have had that information through due practice have left. And so I do want to thank them for the time and effort that they put into that today. We met this last week and we are working on the parks plan, which we brought back a meeting ago. It's still in process. We're going to have a couple more follow-up meetings with staff that are involved in that. We are working on expanding the table as Karen had suggested we do, and we'll bring that back to you guys for adoption, hopefully for the next meeting. That's the plan. And we'll be able to put that table directly online so people can access it and kind of see right from it what they can and can't reserve and how that process will work. We are really close to making some announcements on positions within the city, senior project coordinator, the ACM, and the attorney. And we also posted today an assistant planner position. So we're working really diligently to get these positions filled and get staff on board. We also are in the process of physically shuffling people around in order to open up some office space. So no shuffle within departments by no means, but next time you come in, the person you're looking for may not be where they were before. So we're just trying to get a little more organized, and we just are out of space is what it boils down to. So we're getting creative on how to create a little more space in the building without breaking the bank and full on expanding office space. So that's happening. The engineering department over the last week and a half has been conducting student counts at the crossings for the charter school. And they provided us all the traffic information last year. As you recall, when they came in and were requesting we have a crossing guard on site, that only provided us with the traffic numbers, and the law requires us to have traffic and student numbers. And so they are finalizing those student counts, and we are preparing to get that information in a presentable manner for you guys, and we'll have that probably on your next agenda as well, so we can tell you where we're at with that process. A question I have is the Springdale meeting. We have that tentatively on for the 26th, and I think we're maybe moving it. Is that the way it's looking?
Oh, good.
Okay, I think that probably works better to catch it as we're all going that way anyways. Okay. Fall sports programs begin this week, so football and little kids soccer and some other ones should be at the park across the street as you're out and about. Again, we have the ribbon cutting for the new Aggie Boulevard on September 19th. I think that's at 9 a.m. So a formal notice, we've sent out invitations, but a formal letter inviting should be going out this next day or two as well. And we also have the Community Art Show, which is formerly the Art Walk, but we're kind of expanded that out a little bit. That's on the 14th. And we have the Red Rocks Art Festival coming up October 5th through the 12th. So that's right around the corner as well, just a few weeks away. So we also have been making progress on Walnut Lane. We have been really working on strategizing our plan and what we're doing going forward. We have, as of today, removed the 2 burned out trailers. They're gone. And so they should be open spots. We're now working on how to replace those units in the interim so we can keep people in housing as we're trying to go forward. So that's happening. And then that's all I'm going to talk on. And Rachel is going to do a finance presentation, and that's all we're doing tonight.
Real quick, while Rachel's coming up,
Yeah.
I just wanted to share with everybody that this Saturday is the 50th anniversary of Slick Rock Bike Trail. There's going to be a movie and pancakes and all kinds of fun stuff. So let's see, in the morning, 7:30 to 11, Slick Rock parking lot. There's going to be the ride the trails. It is a fee-free day at Sand Flats. And, yeah, rake and ride, like trail maintenance. And then in the evening at Star Hall and the Sun Court, 6:30 to 9:30, is a movie and a celebration for Dick Wilson, the trail's founder. And
Mayor, is
others.
that available online?
I don't know. It was just handed to me.
It's on the county's website.
Is it on the
Do
county's
this.
website?
Now it's online.
We'll put up a link on our webpage to it, so people, if they see it, can go to the county's webpage and get the information, because I didn't even know about that. That's,
Will you
yeah, we can put that out on
post
the
it in
board.
the front zone?
Can I inject one more save the date thing?
Yes.
Since I'm apparently very forgetful tonight. And that is just that the latest I've heard, and I'm just waiting for final confirmation, but when John Curtis comes on the 8th of October, that the UMTRA site will also try and do a little celebration event having to do with moving 10 million tons of tailings. So more to come on that, but I have a feeling right after the county's lunch meeting with him, they've reserved Lions Park, they'll try and do a few little speeches over there. So,
So maybe
so I was just hoping when we plan that council meeting, we can plan
next,
the workshops accordingly.
next meeting, can we give us an update on all that? And then
Yeah.
as we go into that first meeting in October, we'll make sure to
Yeah,
work around it.
yeah, okay, yeah. The contractors thought they would be able to solidify in the next day or two.
Awesome.
Thanks for remembering that, Noni. Hello. Hello.
So this is partially a follow-up from our 2 o'clock workshop that we had this afternoon. And just really quick, I just wanted to summarize for you the matrix that was in the packet, and then also was discussed just briefly that it is a draft matrix for our capital projects prioritization process. The next step would be for a staff committee to get together, which would include a council member, and we would go through to fine tune this criteria. We can add as many categories as we'd like. So some of the questions that I received through the council comments, we could add additional categories to break those out for the purposes of like efficiency or cost savings. You'll notice that sustainability, I didn't have the technical knowledge to plug in what we should be rating and ranking projects for our sustainability goals. So obviously we would get a recommendation probably from our sustainability director on that piece. And then also this is a draft matrix. It doesn't add up to 100%. Basically we would sit down with some of our projects, plug them in and see how they end up to see if we need to recalibrate any of the specific criteria, if something needs to be weighted more heavily, or if more points need to be attributed to any of these categories. Once the committee finalizes the matrix, then it would come back to City Council for approval. So City Council would actually adopt this as a formal mechanism for approving our capital projects. At that point, staff would start plugging in the projects. So you saw the presentation today that showed all of our needs, which are great. You've adopted the debt management policy. Then after you adopt the capital projects prioritization criteria, each project would be plugged in, would come out with a score, a prioritized list would come back to City Council. You could certainly change that prioritization based on what council priorities are once you've seen the rationale that's gone into the scoring of each of those projects. And then once that list is adopted, then I move forward with financing options, applying our debt management policy as to which project should be financed and for how long, looking at other revenue sources, looking at ways to leverage funds to open up revenue opportunities that might require matching funds.
So, excuse me, I can't talk tonight.
Do you want to give a glass of water?
I don't know what's going on.
You need a water.
Real quickly, you don't have any recent old projects that you could use as test data to check out your matrix? Because it's kind of tough, I think, as Kaylin pointed out, to assign weights to the different rating criteria. I mean, we may all think, oh, this looks perfectly sensible, and then when you get ready to actually do it, you go, oh, well, this project ranks higher than the other, it gets a 90, and the other one only got an 85, but I really want to do the one with just 85.
So that's actually part of the calibration process. So we would take some of the proposed projects that we had now, and we would put them through, and obviously, we know which projects should come out higher than others. So if we put a project through and it comes out with the exact same rating of something that is obviously a lower priority project, then we'd go back and reassess. This template was from the Government Finance Officers Association. So I didn't go in and just kind of randomly, assess the weighting or the points necessarily. The one that I did add that was not included was sustainability. And I took the liberty of kind of preempting the council because I thought that you might like to see that in there given our aggressive sustainability goals. So yes, I would say our previous.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I noticed that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Our previous projects might be a little subjective just because some of the projects that we've done were based on maybe the availability of funding or staff priorities. So they didn't really go through this process to begin with, so it might not be the best test to go back through historical projects. I mean, the wastewater treatment plant obviously was one of the biggest, and it would, we could put that one through and see if that is like off the charts.
Yeah.
But basically, we would take our current proposed list and put it through. And the committee is going to have enough staff with expertise at the table that I feel like it'll be a good process.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions on that before I give you just a brief overview on another topic?
Yep.
So I sent this out today. I don't know if you've had a chance to look or to poke around, but one of the goals of putting together the finance director position was to give regular updates to city council, which also came up in the visioning meetings these past 2 years. And we had talked about those being quarterly updates. What I would like to offer in addition to that is a tool that I can be plugging financial information in that I gather and also from the departments that just at any point in time gives you a snapshot of what's happening with our finances. Part of this came up because I had a request from a council member for our latest sales tax figures, which I apologize. I've been multitasking, doing several jobs, so I haven't had a lot of time to put back into finance director lately, but this was actually a fun project that I got to work on. So I sent this out to each of you on just really quick, like utility billing. Here you can see the makeup of the total billing that we send out every month, how much by service. For those of you that might like to drill deeper and who like spreadsheets, if you click, it actually takes you to the data so that you can actually see each of our categories and how much we billed. For those of you that don't want to see that much, you can stay here with the graphs where it's all summarized. I will just point out really quickly on accounts receivable. So this was the
You're gonna go in there, aren't you?
the first month.
I didn't know we could do that.
The first month that I went through the billing process with our deputy treasurer, we did send out 180 disconnect notices this month. It was a lot, but as it turned out, we hadn't mailed any disconnect notices for the last 4 months. So it had kind of built up for a while. So next month, that number will be much lower. And we've actually had a overall pretty positive response.
How many did we actually disconnect?
None. We're not to that point yet.
That's tomorrow.
And then again, just kind of some metrics, just so you can kind of see, here is the sales tax information. I have more than 10 years worth, but to make it a manageable chart, I just put in the last 4. And I put in sales-based taxes. I'm happy to change this, add in whatever is helpful to you as a council to help you with conversations. Specifically, I know there's a lot of conversations, as Councilmember DeRossery said, with the county right now. So I think it's good information to be able to summarize. When you look at our taxes and you see the increase, the very next piece of the conversation as you're talking to other entities is our reserves. And so looking here at our fund balance reserves, this is the use of fund balance that we have budgeted for this current fiscal year. So when you look at these numbers and you go, wow, look at that, our taxes are up. And then you come down and you look at our budgeted use of fund balance, that kind of makes it a different conversation. And then this last chart is just where our fund balances would be projected to be at the end of this fiscal year based on the fact that we have budgeted to use some of those reserves. The end of this last fiscal year, we ended up taking 800,000 out of the general fund balance. We were hoping that maybe we would contribute, but we had budgeted last year to take out over $1 million, and we ended up using 800,000 at the end of the year, which was within the budget. That was all perfectly allowable based on the way that we had budgeted last year. But as we know, it's not sustainable, and the debt management policy gives us 2 years to stop funding any operational expenses out of our general fund balance. So I want to keep all of you as educated as possible when it comes to our finances, so that when we sit down and have our next budget meeting, which we're hopeful we'll have a kind of an off-season budget meeting with City Council in the next couple months to talk about where we're headed, so that you've got all the information. So I sent shares out to everyone. Feel free to get in, poke around, click on things. You can't edit anything, so you can't break anything. But
Thank you.
You can get in and you can get in and look at all of the numbers. And then I would just say that in addition to the updates that I'll be giving you, if there's something that you want to see or if there's something you have a question on, please let me know. I'm happy to put anything on here that would be beneficial to you to help guide those conversations.
Would it be difficult, Rachel, because I've asked you for it and it was super helpful, to see with our sales taxes, or the TRT, I guess, what the difference is from the hotel discussion and then other uses like the restaurants and the convenience stores, you know, I mean, just to have those.
You want to see sales taxes by sector?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that'd be
good with
awesome.
that together.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Do you want to address the public hearing while you're sitting there, or do you want to come back?
I'll just come back.
Come back, because we will move on unless there is anything more.
Is anybody hearing a super high-pitched?
Yes.
I don't know if it's feedback or if it is your hearing aid.
I can hear it. I can hear it.
Yeah,
Just
no,
put it over there. Maybe
It's like a
it's from there. It's
high-pitched
actually from-
mosquito. I know, I like it's,
like
coming
upstairs
closer.
somewhere. Yeah,
It's the
maybe we
heliums.
can just bring the microphones down a little more. Yeah, it is. I can hear it. What did I talk? Okay. Moving on, section 6, citizens to be heard. I have one comment. Jen Patterson, welcome.
My name is Jen Patterson. I'm the chair of the Moab Charter School Board. I'm the one who came to you a few months back requesting a crossing guard across 400, and I'm just here tonight. I won't take up much of your time. I'm just here tonight to offer more help. If there's anything else I can do, I can crunch more numbers, gather more data, get testimonials, do more legwork, whatever you may need to help this process along. I'm available. My contact information is in that brief that I gave you before, so please feel free to reach out, and if you have any questions or want to talk about it in any way, please let me know, and I'm happy to do so.
Awesome. That was pretty timely.
Yeah.
I think at this point we have, with the student count, we have all the data to start processing it and going through the work of it. So I think at the next council meeting, we'll have a full update as to where it is and what we're going to do.
And are you thinking across 400 or across 300?
So you know we've done counts for both. So we're
Okay.
prepared to address both.
Okay, okay.
and Jen, do you feel that the flags have been helpful? Because it seems like it has been.
I feel they have been helpful. They're very much appreciated. They're definitely a step in the right direction, but come April, come May,
Yeah.
and even when it starts to get dark earlier, we're gonna need a person. We're gonna need a human out there watching the kids and watching the cars.
So just so we all know going forward, that is all completely regulated by the state, and the state risk assessor has set the rules, and the state legislature has set the rules for how all that works. And if we don't meet the criteria, we're not allowed to do it. It's not a decision we get to make. We get the numbers, and then based off the numbers, if it's there, we are required to do it, and if the numbers aren't there, we're not allowed to do it. So it's a state of risk assessment type thing of where we can and can't have them. So, but we'll address all that as we go forward into the next meeting and have a presentation.
So Joel, if they don't hit that cap, is it possible that the school could have their own volunteers and?
We'll go through all of that at the next meeting. We'll have a full presentation of what, if, and I don't know if we do or don't meet the count yet. Like literally, we just finished today, so I don't want to like tip like, whoa, we're doing this is what we're doing. I don't know that yet.
Right.
But there's stages of up to a crossing guard. Like right now, there's no crossing on 3rd South. It's like people are just running across the street. And so there's definitely issues we need to address that we've already seen just by sitting someone in a car for an hour before and after school counting. So we'll definitely have some form of a plan. If the numbers are there to justify a guard, we'll be required by law to put a guard there, and we will meet that obligation.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
What is the, I'm sorry, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sure.
How does the state accommodate fluctuations in enrollment?
I have
Because sometimes we meet the numbers and sometimes we don't.
It's solely based off, so what they do, the requirement is 45 minutes before school starts and 15 minutes after school start is a 1 hour window. And then at the end of school, it's 15 minutes before school gets out and 45 minutes after school gets out. That's a 1 hour window, and that's the count. And by state law, that's where we're mandated to watch and count students crossing at that point. And so that's where all of our data has to come from, is that window. So as far as fluctuation goes, I don't know. That's real loosey-goosey, because to me, it seems like you would be having more people on foot in August, September, October than you would in, say, December, January, February, when it's snowing and cold and it gets dark sooner. So it seems to me, out of complete ignorance, I'm not acting like I know anything about this. It seems to me, though, that this would be your highest numbers of people walking to school when it's good weather and the sun's up early and the sun's out late. This would be the window I think most parents would be like, yeah, go ahead and walk today.
Okay,
Whereas
we are on Citizens to be Heard, so we need to stop the dialogue. I am super sorry, but it sounds like we should have a meeting or be in touch.
and we'll do that at the next meeting.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you,
Thank you for coming tonight. Are there any other citizens to be heard? None? We will move on to our public hearing. 7.1, proposed ordinance 2019-24, an ordinance amending Title 3 of Moab Municipal Code to include Chapter 3.5, Master Fee Schedule, and modifying certain fees and rates charged by the city. I will now open the public hearing. Do we have any comment forms? No.
Can we let Rachel address it quickly and then we'll move on?
Sure.
Just so you guys know what we're doing.
Just so council knows, since this has come to public hearing, we just have a few additional staff changes, which I'll just give you a quick summary of. Our building official felt that it would be more manageable to administrate the fees for both the public and for staff if building service fees were its own subcategory. So I've made changes to do that. I had a couple of questions on the council comment form about some of the fees, and I've asked staff for clarification on those so that I can get back to you. And then the last change was looking at the culinary water rates that we charge for shop water and also for fire hydrant water for construction. We just did a quick comparison around the state today, and I came up with some minor increases that I'd like to recommend to both of those. For those of you not familiar, shop water is for commercial trucks that come out to the city shop and fill their trucks with culinary water, and we charge them per gallon. And hydrant water is for construction, and it's a meter that attaches directly to the fire hydrant and meters the water that comes out for construction. Both of those use culinary water.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for outlining that for us. Seeing as there are not any submitted comment forms, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Kaylin.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ronnie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, moving on to section 8, special events. 8.1, approval of a request for amplified music at Old City Park on September 21, 2019.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
A second.
Thank you. Ronnie and Karen. Discussion?
Congratulations, Synergy, on another great employee appreciation gathering.
Yay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. 9, new business. 9.1, resolution 48-2019, approving the final plat for the Mill Creek Cove Twin Homes subdivision. Nora, thank you. I saw that on our dais in front of us, we have a revised
Yes,
doc.
you do. I was gonna say,
Let's talk about the doc.
yeah. So, what's in your packet? Forget about it. This is
Forget about it, huh?
This is new and revised. So you know that my husband's from New Jersey. so
Oh, I
can
love
say
it.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is new and revised, and based upon some of your questions and comments, which I really appreciate, I went back and tried to figure it out, researched it. You know, our filing system is such that it's lots of different places. So I had to pull a bunch of different stuff together, both in print and in our files. So,
Are we pulling something up here?
slideshow. Okay, so here we are. Mill Creek.
You just whipped this together, didn't you?
Yeah.
Great job.
I don't know what we've got going with the transitions, but that's okay. So this is why I was confused primarily, and probably why some of you are confused.
Can we start by what is the zone?
Yes, I'll go into that. There are
Yeah.
two zones,
Okay.
R2 and R3.
Yeah.
So this is the project history, which shows that there have been many versions with different counts of twin homes and single-family homes and kind of changing the places where those twin homes are and where the same single-family homes are. The Planning Commission approved the preliminary plat in December 14, 2007, and that one had 27 dwelling units. I think most of them were twin homes. And then on March 22nd, the application was filed for a final plat. And at that time, it was 2 single-family homes and 22 twin home lots, 11 sets of 2 twins. And then September 27th, the Planning Commission approved a planning resolution, which is included in your packet, consisting of 20 twin homes, 10 sets, and 4 single-family households. And that's the resolution that the Planning Commission passed that was in your packets. And then we've got a whole bunch of submittals between, well, November 14th, for example, revised plans were submitted with 20 twin home lots and 3 single-family parcels. There were other submittals, but then finally on July 17, 2019, revised plans were submitted that show the current configuration, which is 9 single household lots and 8 twin homes, or 4 sets of 2. So this has undergone a lot of change, and there are, okay, so this is the plat that was recommended by the Planning Commission on 9/27/2008. So this is about a year ago. And this one is mostly twin homes. These are all twin homes. These are all twin homes. This is a twin home. This is a single family, and this is a single family. And this one.
So one clarification, Nora.
Yeah.
So the part of this thing is,
I went the other way.
the part that's north of the road is R2 and the part south is R3, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, and I'll show you that in just a second. So this is what the Planning Commission recommended. This is what is currently proposed, which
By
is,
the developer.
yes, by the developer. And this was submitted in July. And then, So what's currently being proposed is 9 single household lots, and those are sized between 6530 and 8296. They only need to be 5,000 square feet. 8 twin home lots, and each half of the twin home is over 3,000 square feet as required by code. There's a tract A, which is a detention basin, and then there were drainage facilities that were modified based upon input from the county engineer and GWISA. And that kind of took away one of the lots and required a detention structure. Then we required utility easements, and the city engineer's office recommended that that the islands that exist on 4th East be eliminated to accommodate left turn lanes. And that was recommended based upon the volume of turning movements that would occur based upon the proposal. So this is here's the current proposal, and there's a picture of this in a minute. There are 3 parcels. One of them is owned by Wang Organization, and that's what the tax rolls say. I know it's J.J. Wang, but the tax rolls say that it's owned by Wang Organization, so it's one of their corporation names, I guess. And then they actually own 2 parcels. One is a small parcel that's zoned R3. And then we have a property, the biggest property is owned by Brian Ballard, and it's 2.19 acres. It is zoned R2. And then immediately adjacent to that, and part of the original Ballard subdivision, is another piece of property owned by Wang Organization. It's 0.27 acres, zoned R2.
Can you explain which ones are 3?
Yeah.
And which ones
That's
are
what
2?
this does.
Oh, good.
It's right
Okay.
here, Emily, on the back of the.
So,
Oh, is it on here?
yeah, it's on the back.
And that's what this is? Okay.
All right, so these 2 are both parcels that were originally part of the Ballard subdivision and are now being, well, this one's not, but this one's, they're being combined and re-subdivided, and there's an amendment and to create this new subdivision. So these are the 3 parcels. This is the one owned by Ballard, which is 2.19 acres. It's in the R2. This one is owned by the Wayne Corporation. And then this little piece down here on the other side of this little dirt road is the little 0.55 acres that's also owned by Wayne Corporation. So there you can see how it kind of breaks out. All of the lots meet the R2 requirements, much less the R3 requirements. So they more than satisfy the requirements of the existing zoning.
And the R3, those could be, those townhomes instead of twin homes? They're going to do town?
They're going to be twin homes.
They don't have to be.
I know, but that's what's being proposed. This is just a vicinity map, so everybody knows what we're looking at. This is 400 East. This is the existing subdivision. This will become the new road. You can kind of see the islands here that the city engineer is recommending be deleted in favor of turn lanes. And then this parcel down here is the one that is owned by Wayne Corporation, which will be part of the subdivision. So let me go back.
I just wondered if it needed to go back to Planning Commission.
Well, and that's a really good question. So I went through the code today, and there's not a requirement in the code, and there probably should be, but there's not, that says, there's not a requirement that says the final plat has to be just like the preliminary plat. And it doesn't say when the city council approves it, it has to be just like the preliminary plat, or that it has to be like the planning commission approval. It's silent, basically, on it. So the ball is really in your court at this point. You can certainly, if you feel most comfortable, you can certainly refer it back to the planning commission for them to review this revised plan, because they have not reviewed it in detail. It's fewer units. so presumably less impact.
But it does meet the code, correct?
Yeah, it meets code, absolutely, even more than the other ones, because the lots are all a little bit bigger. And so you can refer back to them. You can choose to continue it for more information, or you can certainly approve it if you wish tonight. So whatever you feel most comfortable doing. There is also a question about the Development Improvements Agreement. While it doesn't say in our code that you have to have a DIA with, at the same time, to be executed by the mayor at the time of plat approval by the city council, that has been practiced. That has been the practice in the past. And they're close, from what I understand. They've been working with Chuck pretty continuously on trying to get that finalized. I think he's comfortable with where they all have gotten. It's just a matter of finalizing that DIA.
Oh, sorry, development, what?
Improvements Agreement.
Thank you.
I knew it was development, something.
Also sometimes referred to as a SIA, but I guess that's a Streets Improvement Agreement. Subdivision. So that would be either one, either DIA or SIA.
You just don't want to be SOL.
I think they'd rather not be.
Or DOA.
Or DOA. So, and then your third option, or 3.5, is to continue it pending or finalization of the DIA or SIA.
So I have a couple things to say. One, Nora, putting this together with this quick turnaround, I just want to say thank you so much, because I think you saved both the developer and this council, and probably the planning commission, a whole lot of time. Thank you for being efficient and effective. Also, I have heard feedback from people that have attended meetings with you that you are doing an outstanding job.
Thank you.
So I'm really grateful to that, because I think, I won't speak for the whole council, but our priority is to incentivize housing development, and part of housing affordability, not affordable housing, not just the lowest, of the low, but housing affordability is actualizing subdivisions and standards. And while if they get this subdivision passed tonight, they still have a long way to go to finish, to get their permits before they can start their development.
Yes.
And so I encourage us as a council to see the benefit in expediting subdivisions, because if it's by right, and if it went to the planning commission is going to say yes, that we expedite the subdivision process without having to weigh in on a developer's improvement agreement. Because sometimes developers, and I saw this in my own work, having a subdivided plat means you can leverage individual lots and you can get families to sign on. They can start their loan application process. So getting a subdivision done before having all the other stuff in place is a benefit to the developer, and that's what we heard from Housing Authority as well.
And that's not unusual. Most of the places I work, that's the step that has to be done before the initial construction meeting and before construction on subdivision improvements can commence.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a hit and miss. I think there are some developers who come in and they want to do the subdivision and the development all at once. And so for some, it's a benefit. I think for others who are doing financing, it can be a detriment because they just need the subdivision done in order to get their financing done so they can start down that road. So we're going to try, as we go forward and we redo our code, we're going to try and provide an avenue to go both. So we're going to try and keep what we've done for those developers who like that, but we're also going to go back and provide the subdivision aspect that you're speaking of that benefits a certain type of developer, for sure.
Yes.
And as I mentioned, the code is completely silent about revisions and preliminary versus final.
So again, the planning commission approved 23 originally, not that long ago, and now they're going to 17.
Yeah.
And at this point in this process, Nora, has it been decided whose responsibility it is to take out those islands, and do they mitigate our roads?
I think Chuck is here to help answer that question.
all those costs would be borne by the developer. And in the development agreement, by the way, one of the things that we'll do is for each one of those trees that will go away with the, oh, thank you, that would go away with the island, they'll plant 2. At a location to be determined. That's kind of our standard 2-for-1 deal that we offer when we have to do it.
Okay.
Rootless trees?
Pardon me?
Rootless trees?
Yes, it's the only this is the only type we're planning from here on out.
Root-friendly trees at the very least.
There are the trees that root down and the trees that root out. Right. So we like the deep root.
I think it's a metaphor. Cacti, that's right.
It's a metaphor. Okay, so, yep.
May I ask a clarification on that?
Yes.
So I thought I saw something in your description, Nora, that said that people who want to go north would have to loop back through to Kiva, and it had something to do with the island, I thought. But then I don't hear you guys talking about why, I don't see why that would be necessary. Why can't they just go out 4th East and go right? They can't.
I think that's about these 2 lots, maybe. There is a special condition about these 2 lots that they can't access directly off of 400 East.
They have alley parking.
Okay.
Yeah, they will be accessed with this common driveway that
Okay,
will come off of Adelaide.
Okay, so nobody has to circle around through Kiva Drive then?
Correct.
No, they don't have
Oh,
to,
I thought that. Okay, thank you.
but in case of emergency.
Yeah. And excuse me, Mayor, one more question. I had a question from a resident. I pointed out that, gee, this is another 23 homes, a bunch more here and there. And I am concerned a little bit about cumulative traffic on 4th East and so forth, particularly coming down Mill Creek Drive and so forth. And I know this is a subdivision by right. I'm not beginning to imply that we should say, no, we can't, even if we wanted to, and I'm not sure that's the case either. But I am concerned about, in general, I guess in town, what sort of tools might we have? If we decide that the road is horribly congested now, and there's still more dense housing that we wish to build in the area that would further congest the road, as we as council, what options do we have to say, you know, this really doesn't make any sense. It's congested too badly now. What sort of tools or recourse would we have if we wanted to do that?
So this gets into some legal gray areas. Before you would want to make that assessment or assertion, you would want to have data available to you that
Correct.
justifies that claim. It's not just the council saying, well, we think it's too busy. We would want to do traffic studies that, from the city standpoint.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's my alarm and you can't make it silent. I'm so sorry. It's happening.
And so,
I agree.
So sorry.
So we would definitely need to start there. Once we got there, if you could show that, the question is whether or not you requiring them to upgrade the road is an exaction. And that's the legal requirement of, you can require developers to do an improvement to your road, expand the road out so long as it's correlated to their development. You can't make them give you infrastructure that isn't really being caused by their development. So once we can show that the road is already at its limit, then their building there would cause excess beyond the capacity, then we could require them to expand the road as they go forward as a part of their development and tie that directly to their footprint that they're creating. So it's not an illegal exaction, it's a legal exaction.
And one of the remedies, I think the best remedy would be if we have those discussions, determine that our roads are beyond the point that we're comfortable with, is to rezone property so that you're not allowing more and more units, not encouraging those units. I mean, ultimately, that's the best way to control density. But on one hand, we're trying to get density in smaller product. And on the other hand, we are concerned about
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
That's really helpful to say that
Chuck?
one mechanism is downzoning. And that's kind of an interesting juxtaposition. Thank you, Nora, for explaining that. No, Joe.
So I'd just like to say that I agree with the points that the mayor made. And I'd like to point out that the perception that traffic that the town is more trafficy than it used to be is not the criteria that I've seen engineers use in traffic studies. They look at levels of service and like peak loading at intersections, and just doing a traffic study is not likely to address the citizen complaints that I've heard recently that they think that somehow doing more traffic studies will stop development and restore the town to some pre-development state, like when they moved here, to put it indelicately.
And traffic studies are a science, they're not a perception. And too much traffic is a perception in a lot of ways. So it's in the eye of the beholder. If there's too many cars here than there used to be. Well, that kind of depends on who's making that claim. So I don't know that if you started doing a traffic study that you would get that result anyways.
Right.
So,
but
There aren't enough horses on our roads anymore.
yeah.
But not to discount specific safety concerns like may exist at the charter school and
Absolutely.
funny intersections where streets don't line up and,
We have an infrastructure problem. I agree.
yes.
All right, well, we're talking about this, so,
and
yes?
More density in town makes it more walkable, which helps keep cars off the streets. I have a question about condition number 4, nightly rentals are not permitted in this zone district.
I just added that for clarity. You can take it out if you wish. Whenever I can put that in black and white, I do.
Okay, but it's not something that you will be formally added to the deeds.
No, we're not asking them to do that unless you want us to.
And I think the addition of it was to clarify that these zones weren't included for overnight accommodations prior to
Right.
legislation.
But it doesn't preclude that changing in the future, particularly if the state were to take our ability to do so away.
If somebody wanted to make a
Yeah.
motion,
Since these are in residential zones, I don't know if the state would go that far.
I
I don't
agree
know.
with Nora.
But
I move to adopt Resolution 48-2019 to conditionally approve the final plat for the Mill Creek Coves Twin Homes subdivision with the conditions listed in the revised staff memo.
thank you, Kalen.
I'll second.
Thank you, Karen. Any final deliberation? Call for the vote.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much for your hard work, Nora. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. Thanks, Joe. Okay, moving right along, 9-2, US 191 Highway Widening Project, night construction restrictions. Did you have a presentation? Or follow-up to your presentation?
No, I just have the exhibits, and if you'd like me to talk about it, I will. If you don't want me to talk about it, I'd be happy to just sit here.
Well, let's just, why don't you sit there, because we can pull it up if needed. But does anyone want to get some questions answered before I call for a motion? Or does someone?
This is the motion that takes 2 minutes to download, okay?
This is so what is going on with your summary sheet? Big bit or something?
I checked into it after the work session.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that part of the issue is with the the software that we're using, Civic Plus. But we're going to check further into it. I really didn't have time to come to a resolution between this afternoon and tonight.
No worries. We won't blame you.
Yeah.
We'll blame the software.
Software gremlins.
Yeah. Okay.
Blame IT.
I always want to say blame Canada because of the very inappropriate South Park movie, but.
I guess I just had a real quick question, Chuck, from looking over your stuff. Thanks for laying out all the times and looking at the 2 maps. So what confused me is, so we have those homes on just off the 500 West intersection, but they're a little ways off the intersection. So I just wasn't sure if that was a night work zone or not, with restricted hours.
Stormwater work.
These right here?
Yeah, so I just wasn't sure because I figured the work's over on the highway, but that corner's definitely close, and I couldn't remember what the proximity rule was. Yeah.
So the criteria I used was 250 feet from active work zone, and what's going on here is we have a storm drain. The major storm drain is going to be coming down the highway, and right now the plan is for it to come down through here, down into this parcel, and then exit down into the wetlands through here. So there would be a significant amount of work for that storm water activity down there, and that's why I added
Okay,
this
yeah,
to it.
thanks for that reminder, because I was like, oh, another corner's definitely close.
Yeah, no, it's clearly further than 250 feet from the highway, but with that work there, and UDOT didn't balk at that. They agreed that,
And then on the south end, can you just remind me how far south this work starts? Does it start at 400 or it actually starts a little bit north of
it starts
400?
it starts at 400 north.
Because I guess the only other housing I wondered about then, but it may not be within your so many 100 feet, was that apartment complex on Emma.
Yeah, they just are like 280, something like that. And so it was in the interest of trying to be consistent. They missed.
Okay.
But fortunately, the good news is there won't, this area shouldn't have as much because it already has 5 lanes or 4 lanes of traffic there anyway. So.
Okay, any other questions? Is there a motion?
I move to approve US 191 Highway Widening Project work hours as stipulated below.
Thank you, Tani.
I'm not going to read the stipulations.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ronnie. Final deliberation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thanks, Chuck. 9-3, proposed ordinance 2019-25, an ordinance amending the municipal code to permit serving of alcohol at public events held on certain city properties. Thank you, Joel, for the work putting this together. We had it in our packet. I don't know if you had any questions that were submitted that you want to answer?
Yeah, I did.
Were there?
Real quick, the former code, and the reason we brought this back to you, it didn't address some areas that has been in line with what city practice has been. We have permitted in the past weddings to take place at Lions Park where champagne was served and things like that. But as Mike pointed out in sections E and F, F was added because there was no private event at parks where we were permitting that type of service. And so we added that F into the code in order to be able to provide that. Mike pointed out that E and F could probably be combined if you just added public and private in that one, and I wouldn't balk at that whatsoever. I think that that's a fair change if you want to make that change. If not, you can leave it, and so it's clearly spelled out either way. I don't know if there was other real concerns that we need to address in here. The times were all different depending on kind of where you were at. They were all the same type of a window, but like one was from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and one was from noon to 9. And so it was hard for staff to keep track of like, well, what type of event is this and where are we to know which the time frame was. So we didn't add hours to any serving, but we did make it so everyone, it was noon to 9, regardless of kind of where you were. Obviously, there was a couple exceptions to that, and that was the mark for private events. We've had some requests from some businesses who wanted to have barbecues for the employees and rent out the entire pool, and they wanted to barbecue and serve beer at their event where they would limit it to two people per 2 beers per employee, and they were going to ticket, put a wristband on and mark it, but we've not permitted that up till now. Obviously, if you guys aren't comfortable with that, we're fine with taking it out, but we have had a lot of requests for that, and so we wanted to give you the option for doing that. Those hours would just be the regular MRAC hours. Obviously, there is the last provision in the section that we haven't changed that allows for us as the administration or you as the council to put on any further restrictions you deem are necessary in order for the function to be carried out safely. And so one of the things we as a group, when we were making this update, were talking about was if we were permitted at the MRAC and we had something like that, we would charge a higher fee associated with that service, and we would actually have extra lifeguards on duty. I think people get a little antsy with people drinking at the pool, but I personally think it's overstated. Every pool I go to when I go on vacation has a bar built right into the pool, and they are literally serving drinks in the pool, and they don't have any lifeguards on duty, and it doesn't seem to be much of an issue, but it is public. It is a different scenario. I understand that. So we can take it out entirely. We put it in there so you guys had the option to discuss it and go from there.
So that was one of my questions, if it adds any liability to have that use near a pool. It sounds like it probably doesn't. I mean, just from river tips, we never mix glass with the boat in case you break something, so I didn't know. I mean, obviously, we're trying to get away from plastic, but I didn't know if there's a way to then promote
So aluminum
something
cans.
else that wasn't, okay.
And we did have that discussion where there's already glass not allowed at the MRAC, and so when we were doing this, we were already had that kind of talk. We're like, well, what about? And I go, that it's not allowed, and so it'd just be aluminum cans what would be the option in that scenario.
Just some history on those times. I think what happened with Swanee, and you guys who've been here as long as me or might remember, I think the reason that the 10 o'clock got put on Swanee is because, at the time anyway, because of the half marathon, because some of their runners come in at 11 and they had the beer tent and I don't know, I think at the time, and I don't necessarily care one way or the other, but I do think there was some history there. I don't know how it works at the Arts Festival, how early they're serving.
Well, with the good question, so with this, if somebody had a special event permit, could they ask for special hours? So
Yes.
while we have our standard hours, the race could still get an earlier serve time of 10:30?
Yeah, and so, I mean, if you guys want to put it back to 10 to 7, it's fine. And, you know, we just, like I said, tried to make it so it was all one time across the board, so it was easier to keep track of. It's the same amount of time that's allowed.
I think as long as like a specific event that has a special ask can do a special thing, I think it's fine.
Okay. And
Yeah.
if you look on there, that is one of the changes we're making is historically those events had to come to city council. And we're saying that these smaller events could be approved by the administration, but if it rises to the level that it requires a special event permit, it would still come to you. So in those scenarios where like the half marathons there, if they wanted to go 10 to 7, that would be for you guys to allow.
And like, so if we pass this, you can actually drink a beer in one of our parks?
No,
As a private person, not at an event?
Not
Can you
yet.
drink a beer
No.
at the park?
not yet.
Okay.
But you can't at my house.
That is a lengthy discussion that's taking place as a part of the park policy that we're gonna bring you as a.
So should
just
we be thinking about that? Because
Yes.
if we go with park policy and we say we want to allow people to have a beer at a park,
Yes, and I can.
then we could move, part of the motion could be to amend this that we're passing hopefully tonight.
Well, this is for events. So this is like if we're giving public events, private events, we're giving us the ability to do smaller events and allow it. And special events that are larger events are already allowed that you guys can permit.
I see.
Personal individual is park policy. We're
Okay.
torn on that. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Literally, as I've been involved in those discussions, I've kind of gone back and forth on it because it's kind of one of them rules that if you're sitting there behaving and eating a pizza, no one says anything. It's when you're being drunk and rowdy that they need to come kick you out, and it's a good reason to kick you out. So I'm kind of torn on it. But we'll have that worked out by the time we get to that.
All right.
Because we have other rules that we can use in that case if someone's being obnoxious and disorderly conduct like settings. So we're still hashing the personal use out.
Thank you for your and staff's work on this. Is there a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance 2019-25, an ordinance amending the municipal code to permit serving of alcohol at public events held on certain city properties.
Thanks, Karen.
I'll second.
Thanks, Tani. Final discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 9-4, discussion regarding the current USU campus property. I will kick us off. The USU invited the city and the county to a meeting where USU said, all right, we're thinking about, as you know, we're selling the property. Is the city interested as a buyer? And Joel and I talked about it. We talked about Public Works. We talked about a few things. And we were kind of like, not really. And at our last meeting, we reported back about that. But we said, well, we would give this council just a chance to put the nail in the coffin or have a change of heart. So based on our money that we're going to have to be spending here on infrastructure and just all the other projects that we have, I, for one, don't see us as interested. But do any other council members have interest?
What's the zone there?
So it is C3, I think.
And so, just so I can
3.2 million, wasn't it?
share just a little and I'll hurry.
3.9.
We as staff went down and toured it last week as well. It is a building, it is a campus that we could do something with, but we crunched numbers based off what the asking price is and how purchasing one to another would work, and then remodeling and what we would have to do to make it work for us. We were looking at the minimum of around $5 million to six to make it work for what we would need. And we kind of got into this idea of if we're spending that type of money, we can do things other places and have facilities that are directly what we need.
And property that we already
Yeah,
own.
on property that we already own, because you reduce the purchase price. So it's not that it's a bad, I think it's a great property. It's right in the middle of town. I think if you guys wanted to purchase it, we could definitely make use of it. We could make a police facility out of it along with a public works facility out of it, and we could do that. But like I said, it would cost us about as much as it would to just build out what we're trying to do with public works now and Justice Center at a later date. So.
I tend to echo what Emily said, that just given everything else that's on our plate, and that it wouldn't be,
I don't know that it's
it wouldn't be
the basis of funds.
customized to what we really need. I think it's just not the right thing to do at this point. And it sounded like possibly the county had a more thought out plan that they could utilize it better than we could.
Additionally, USU did meet with the school district and the charter school to give them the same offer.
Yeah, and I think there are community members who could benefit more than us using it, to be
I
honest with
assume
you.
they're planning to be in that space until the new campus is ready to open its doors.
So if you purchased, you would relet back to USU until 2021, at which time they would move to their new facility, and then you could go in. And so it would be a 3 to 4 year period before we could get in there and get going. By the time they moved out, and then you renovated, and then you actually.
So unless anybody has any like strong feelings in favor, I think we say thanks but no thanks.
I agree, but may I ask one question of Mr. Kingsley, since you, if I may?
Oh, you may.
Well, you've been on the USU board, I know, and so have you, Emily. So I just know that Leanna talked for a long time on local fundraising effort, a couple of $1 million. I think she's after now. I've heard $500,000 and so forth. So is this? She's always optimistic. You know, we're going to get started any minute now. But is it still contingent on raising some substantial sum of money locally before she can get going? Do you know?
My understanding is the campus is going to move forward with or without the commitment, because we do have what I would call soft pledges that are significant, and there are 4 people that I personally have talked to who are capable of also making significant pledges, but they want to see something move forward. In other words, they don't want to be the one who kicks the stone out first. They want to follow the commitment of the community. And am I making sense?
Yeah, I hear you.
And so
It's moving forward. She still needs $500,000. There's soft money available.
From what I know, and in personal conversations with donors, they have motivated USU to move forward in anticipation of meeting the goals of the funding. And so I think it's going to move forward. And if I can add one sentence to it, I think, as you all know, I am 100% without hesitation in favor of this campus. And hopefully it will go back to its original concept of being a destination campus. And your help in making that a reality
Thanks, Joe.
we will move forward.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. Ribbon cutting for the road, 19th, 9 p.m., 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
And,
You'll be out there all by yourself in the dark.
9 p.m.
With a flashlight.
I brought my scissors.
Dave, former Mayor Davis, I also personally invited him to stand alongside us in that. Okay, so I'm going to say thanks, but no thanks.
No thanks.
No thanks? No thanks. Okay. Section 10, approval of bills against the city of Moab. Tawny.
I have them right here.
Great. Is there a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $2,141,935.63.
Thank you, Tawny. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Kaylin, Aaron. We'll go Kaylin. Any fun details you want to share?
I want to go to FBI college.
Oh, some people go to FBI college.
Yes.
All right. Is there something else?
No, it's just mostly everyday stuff. There were a bunch of them. I did go back and get the ones that got lost in the transfer, so that's
Okay.
partly why it was
it's
so
part of the
much.
approval.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Tawny. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Karen Kellen. Oh, no. It's
been a long day.
if you weren't sitting next to each other. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are
We'll shuffle them up next meeting. You have to find your spot like the first day of school.
That was funny.